B, C, D, E, F, G.
Welcome back, friends. I once again welcome you on this particular series based primarily on preparation for competitive examination and also to help people improve their grammatical accuracy through this particular exercise which is known as spotting the errors. As you can see, it's subhead as an exercise for improving grammatical accuracy and for preparation for the competitive exam. So that means this exercise is useful for all kinds of users of English language, whether they are willing to appear in the exam or not. That means even for day-to-day communication, we always wish whenever we communicate, we must have grammatical accuracy in our speech and text. Bearing that in mind, that this particular exercise is going to be extremely useful, and if you are a student, you are preparing for any kind of competitive examination, then definitely it is very useful for you because this consists of a very important exercise and a rather tough exercise which is known as spotting the errors. Under this, I'll cover about 10 sentences where you need to find out whether they contain any kind of grammatical error or not. If there is the error, what is the error, why that is being considered as an error, and how to rectify the error. So let's begin. The first sentence that you can see is, we had to cancel our trip to Delhi because when we reached the railway station, the train left. Friends, let me make the point clear that unless our basics of grammar is not clear, we cannot crack these kind of examinations. Don't expect that just going through these kind of videos will help you to understand the basics of a language. So this exercise is going to be far more useful for those who already have basic knowledge of grammar. Fine. In this sentence, let us see what is wrong in the sentence and how to correct it. As you can see, the correct option would be the train had left. In the first sentence, you can see it ends with the train left, whereas the correct option should be the train had left. Why? Under note I have given you the answer also. Whenever there is a sentence of the past that contains two action verbs, like in the sentence, one action verb is reached the station, that is reach, again our action verb. Another action verb is train left. So train left includes left, third form of leave. So whenever we talk of a sentence that contains two different verbs and we are talking about the past, in such situation that action which takes place before another action is always formed in past perfect structure. What is the structure? In the past perfect we have to use subject, after subject we have to use had, and after had we all know always third form of the verb comes. And therefore it should be the train had left. Why? Because there are two actions in the past: reaching to the railway station, that is first action, and leaving of the railway station by the train. So which action took place first? Obviously the train left the station first and then we reached the station, and therefore it should be the train had left. Is that clear? Let me give you another example that will become make it easy for you to understand. For example, there are two actions in the past. One is of arrival of a doctor somewhere where there was a patient, okay, and another action that took place is death of that patient. So both the action took place in the past, arrival of the doctor and dying of the patient. So there were two actions, arrival of the doctor and death of the patient. Both happened in the past. Now let us see what kind of sentences can be made. So in this situation there are two probabilities. First probability is the doctor arrived first and then the patient died, and second probability could be The patient died first and then the doctor arrived. So bearing these two probabilities, there can be two different sentences. Let's see. There can be two different sentences depending upon what happened first. For example, if doctor arrived first, the sentence would be the doctor had arrived. Why? Because that particular action, that of arrival of the doctor, took place first. Therefore, we are using had before arrived. And the death of the patient happened later on. Therefore, we are not using had with died. We are simply using simple past tense with that. So, the doctor had arrived before the patient died. Had has to be used with the arrival of the doctor because that happened first. Now, second probability is, however, if the patient died first, the sentence would be the patient had died. Why? Because in this sentence we are saying that the death of the patient happened in the very beginning, at first place, and only after that the doctor arrived. So it is not like where to use had. It all depends upon what happened first. Whatever action happens first, if there are two actions in the past, so the action that took place first will be found with the help of had. Is that clear? Alright. So the structure would be subject plus had plus third form of verb took place first, whereas subject plus verb second form of the verb that took place later. So I gave this explanation with a view to help you understand why we are supposed to use had in that sentence, which we have already done. So let's move to another sentence. That is, many a student has failed in the mathematics test, but Dilip has scored 100%. Most of the people use this expression 100%. But do you know, in formal communication or in written communication, this expression is not considered right, and therefore the correction would be many a student has failed in the mathematics test, but Dilip has scored full marks. So instead of using expressions like scored 100%, we should use scored full marks. In formal expression, 100% is not used, rather we should use in such condition full marks. Next sentence is, the general with over 1,000 officers and soldiers have surrendered to the Indian troops who are patrolling the valley. Alright, now what is the problem in this kind of sentence? Because we are using here, apart from general, we are talking about 1,000 officers and soldiers, we tend to consider the subject as the subject is of plural number, and therefore we are using here have. But the fact is, the subject is of singular number only. The general is the only subject. Whenever we add additional subjects with the help of a word like with or along with, always remember we are not supposed to use plural number verb. Always remember this word, the general, will be considered the subject, and therefore accordingly we have to use verb. So therefore instead of have, there should be has. Yes, the general with over 1,000 officers and soldiers has surrendered to the Indian troops who are patrolling the valley. Is that clear? So this has to be in consonance with the main subject, that is general. So don't get confused with this particular phrase with over 1,000 officers and soldiers, because we are using here with, that has become additional part, that is not main subject. However, if we had used instead of with, if we had used and, then definitely have would have been correct. But we are not using and, we are using with. So always remember this kind of difference, because we get confused because of this. Main subject is in singular number, that is the general, hence has should be used. And therefore I have already mentioned where we need to be careful. Beware of committing such errors, particularly when with or along with is used in a sentence. Okay, so with and along with, whenever they are used, always remember the main subject has to be considered in mind whenever we use the verb. If the main subject is in the plural number, then the plural number verb has to be used, otherwise singular number. Next sentence is, If he wrote the examination faster and had answered one more question, he would have scored better. Again, we are talking about the past tense, that to a conditional sentence. Whenever we make a conditional sentence of the past, always remember that clause which contains condition is always expressed in this structure where you have to use had plus verb third. But in the original sentence, what has been used? Second form of the verb. If he wrote, but the correction should be if he had written. Whenever you are making this kind of sentences, conditional sentences of the past, always remember that clause which contains condition or which has if. The sentence that begins with if, the clause that contains if or condition has to have this particular structure, that is subject plus had plus verb third. Is that clear? In note also I mentioned it. In conditional sentences of the past, the first part of the sentence that contains the condition is made through the structure as if, subject plus had, and if it is negative sentence, obviously it will have not along with it, plus third form of the verb. Therefore, instead of saying if he wrote, we should write if he had written, and in that case the sentence would be correct. If you had informed me about your accident, I've given an example in the same structure. If you had informed me about your accident, I would have come to see you in the hospital. So see, in the very first part where the condition is there, which begins with if, I have used here had informed. I'm not saying if you informed me about your accident. If I wrote the sentence like if you informed me, in that case the sentence would be incorrect. Therefore, I have to write it like if you had informed me. Is that clear? Let's move to another sentence. For decades there have been a debate on whether schizophrenia is a psychological condition. Schizophrenia, many of you must be familiar with the term, is a psychological state where people tend to feel what is not actually fact or truth. So that is also considered as a disorder, mental disorder. Okay, so there is a sentence based on that word. For decades there have been a debate on whether schizophrenia is a psychological condition. Now here what we need to pay attention to is, for decades there have been a debate. A debate means there is just a singular number subject here, a debate, and you are talking about a singular number subject, and here you are using a plural number verb, that is have. So this has to be rectified. What should be the correct answer? The correct answer would be, for decades there has been a debate, because debate is a singular number, so therefore we have to use singular number verb. For decades there has been a debate, that would be the correct option. Again the explanation is same. Since debate is a singular number noun, instead of have, has should be used in this sentence. Another example is where we can use have. This example I have given. There have been numerous debates. So because here debates is in plural form, here we can use have been. There have been numerous debates over how to uproot terrorism, though without any concrete conclusion. So it all depends upon the number of the subject, singular number, plural number, this is also known as subject verb agreement. Okay, so verb has to agree with the number of the subject, whether it's singular number or plural number. If it is a debate, it has to be has been. If it is debates, then have been. Let's move to another sentence. Mohan is the one who always finds faults with whatever Ram does. Is there any error in the sentence? Mohan is the one who always finds fault with whatever Ram does. Actually there is no error. Yeah. So you have to be very confident about your knowledge of the grammar. Only then you will be able to find out whether there is an error or no error. Otherwise what happens in exercises like spotting the errors, most of the students begin to find fault with every sentence that is served before them. But that is not the right option. You must be familiar with the options given to you in competitive examination. A, B, C, D, E. These sentences are divided into 4 or 5 parts. Some parts are known as A, then B, then C, then D, and last one option is known as no error. So remember, there can be a sentence like this which contains no error. but you will be able to identify it only when you are confident about your grammatical knowledge regarding the sentences. So let's move to another sentence. There is a need to revising government policies on controlling unauthorized constructions. Now some of you must be familiar with one basic rule. Whenever we use this word to, infinitive, which is known as in grammar, and a verb comes after to, we are supposed to use the base form of the verb or the first form of the verb. So instead of using revising, it should be revise. There is no need to revise government policies. So we should not write here revising. Whenever we use a verb after to, it has to come in the first form. Alright, use of first form of action verb after infinitive to. Let's go to another sentence. We know where it begins, but we don't know that where it ends. Now see, in the very first sentence, we know where it begins. We are directly using after know where it begins. But we don't know. When we are saying we don't know, after know, we are unnecessarily using the word that. Whereas that is not required in this type of sentence. You can directly use object to the verb know without using that. Just like we don't know where it begins, it should be we don't know where it ends. So here we must remove the word that. But we don't know where it ends. Is that clear? There is no that between know and where. Where it ends comes directly after know. So that should be removed. Next sentence. The simplest method of welding two pieces of metal together is known as pressure welding. Welding, you all know, with the help of welding, particularly iron materials are joined together. So the very process of welding means somebody is trying to join two different pieces. Okay, and therefore in sentences like these, together word is not required at all, because the word welding itself means you are trying to combine two things together. Combine the word simply means you are making it together. So therefore together must be removed in this sentence. We have to be careful about these kind of sentences. As welding itself means joining two different objects together, another together is not required in the sentence. Hence together would be removed from the sentence. Last sentence is, one of the important benefits of machine age is that our standard of life has improved. In this kind of sentence, we must remember that we are talking about the benefits of a particular age, a specific age. Therefore, we need to emphasize that age. And how to emphasize? By using the article the. As the sentence is stating something about a particular or specific age, the name of that must be preceded by the, and therefore it should be the machine age. Okay, instead of writing it simply benefits of machine age, we should write it like benefits of the machine age. Is that clear? So that's it for today. If you found the video useful and interesting, please like and share it, and support English Khajana for making such videos by subscribing the channel now. Thank you very much.